Welcome to my dungeon. I mean basement. It's feeling a little bit like a dungeon right now. I have the floor up and there's some work that needs to be done, and I don't have my spray booth. But I think this is a great opportunity to show you how you can refinish some furniture, even with the most bare bones tools and equipment. So stick with me and watch me flip this dresser. I found this piece of furniture on the side of the road on my way to the grocery store one evening. And although I have furniture filling up my entire house ready to be refinished, I couldn't pass up this deal. It was completely free. Wow. And wow was it dirty. And not made out of any great materials, so I think this is the perfect piece to be painted. And although I was missing a few knobs and it wasn't made out of solid wood, it was really sturdy and in great shape otherwise. So I think we can do something great with this. And the first thing that we're gonna do is wash it down with some warm soapy water. This is just warm water and dish soap. I want to make sure that I don't pass any dirt or grime on to the next owner, but more importantly, I want to make sure that there's nothing in between the finish that's there now and the new finish I put on. This will make it not adhere well, especially if it's a wood polish or a wax or something like that. And you definitely can't neglect cleaning the underside of these dressers or any piece of furniture. There's always going to be cobwebs, animal fur, and dirt underneath these, at least in my experience. And you don't want any embarrassment when you're going to load this in the new owner's car. That will definitely be seen, and it won't look good. Now with everything clean, I can go ahead and start filling all these holes or damaged spots with wood filler. And if you really wanted to cheap out, you could even make your own with some glue and some wood dust. And I'm just going to take my time and go around filling in all the damaged spots with this wood filler. It's a good time to turn on some music and get lost in the work. I'm going to do the same thing to the drawers, and ultimately I'm going to be able to sand this down to an ultra smooth finish that you will never know there was damage underneath it once it's painted. And you can see I was pretty liberal with this wood filler. I wanted to make absolutely sure that the finish was going to be absolutely smooth when I was done and ready for paint. Something that I couldn't fix with wood filler was this little crack in the side of one of the drawers. It was really holding itself together already, but I was able to squeeze some glue into it. I use super glue here, but you could have used any sort of glue. And it's a good idea to inspect the drawer slides too. This one was a little bit loose, so I tightened it down with a screwdriver. No big deal, but this fix will stop it from getting worse in the future and causing any long-term damage. And with the wood filler dry, it's time to start sanding. And I'm going to use 120 grit sandpaper to smooth out the surface. Not only will it make the surface nice and smooth and uniform, it will also provide a micro texture that the paint and primer can stick onto a little bit better. And this kicks up quite a bit of dust, so you're going to definitely want some breathing protection. And after everything was sanded, I'm going to use a damp rag to wipe up all the sanding dust. This will make sure that the primer in the next step can adhere properly to the freshly scuffed up surface. And something people don't really talk about in refinishing videos is keeping your area clean. You need to make sure that you clean up in between steps to make sure that you don't contaminate your surface finish. And something else that I think gets overlooked quite a bit in refinishing videos are the weird gaps and cracks at the interfaces of surfaces on furniture projects. In this case, it's the gap between the legs and the body and the top of this dresser. These things can really stand out, especially if you're painting it a light color like a white. So using a paintable caulk to fill these gaps in can really increase the overall quality of your finished project. This paintable caulking takes about 30 minutes to dry to the point where you can move on to the next step, which in this case is primer. And you can use all sorts of primer. You could use a spray can like I'm showing here, but since I'm doing this inside, I'm going to opt for something that is a little less stinky and can be rolled on, like this bin shellac-based primer. This dries extremely quickly and it sticks to just about anything, and it will allow the paint to bond super well to the surface, which is everything you want in a primer. It might be on the more expensive side. You can definitely get cheaper primers, but you get what you pay for. And a little tip for you, if you're going to use something that can't be cleaned up with water like this primer, line your paint tray with tin foil so you can just toss it when you're done with it and move on. And another cheap trick is to use these foam rollers from the dollar store. These cost me about $2 Canadian, so very cheap, and I only needed 2 for this project. They apply a great layer of paint or primer, and they don't leave any fuzzy bits like traditional rollers might, especially the cheap ones. This primer takes about half an hour to dry, but I gave it 2 hours to fully cure before coming back with some 320 grit sandpaper and a sanding block to smooth out any surface texture before I go to paint. Again, after sanding, I give it a quick wipe down with a slightly damp rag to pick up any of the dust and make sure that the paint in the next step sticks now to the primer. and you want to pick a good paint for a furniture project. Furniture can see a lot of use, misuse, and even abuse in its life, so you want to pick a paint that can handle it. And in the spirit of this video, I'm going with a paint that's super accessible to most people and very easy to apply. This Behr cabinet door and trim enamel in a black satin is going to be a perfect paint for this application and the spirit of this video. There are better paints out there for furniture projects, but know what you're getting into. Some of these paints for furniture are very expensive, and you might need special equipment like a spray gun and a spray booth just to be able to apply them. So while you can experiment, know what you're getting yourself into. And I find that when I'm rolling paint, it's best to work in sections. Pick a side, get the paint on, and once the paint is on roughly, you can go back with long sweeping motions across the entire surface to really even it out and get a nice uniform coat. And then you can move on to the next surface. To stop your paint from drying out in the tray in between coats, you can wrap it in some saran wrap or painter's plastic. In about 2 hours, this paint is ready for the next coat. Before doing so, I always recommend to give a quick inspection over the entire surface to make sure that there's not any weird texture. If there is, you can go over it with some very fine grit sandpaper and knock any rough spots down. And I wanted to keep this repair in the video. I'm only just now noticing that I'm missing one of these corner guides in the dresser frame. These guides hold the drawer level and make sure that it slides smoothly in and out. And this is a sort of repair that I could see a lot of people being scared about handling. You have to go out on Amazon, buy something for 20 bucks. You're gonna get 50 of them in a bag, and it might take a week just to get it. You can make your own if you're creative. It's just a piece of hard plastic nailed to the frame. So that's what you're gonna see me do, make my own. and I'm going to make it out of this scrap plastic that I found in a junk drawer, and I'm going to reuse the nail that I pulled out of the dresser body. All I'm going to do is cut pieces of this plastic to layer up and match the same height and shape of the dresser drawer guides that already exist. I needed to double up this material to get the same thickness as the drawer guides that already existed, and now I'm going to pre-drill a hole for the nail that's going to hold these pieces down. And something else that you want to do is countersink where the head of the nail is going to go, because you don't want the drawer to be riding on the head of the nail, which would slowly wear away the bottom of the dresser drawer. You want it to ride directly on the plastic instead. Since I'm using the same nail, I can install it in the exact same way, in the exact same hole. If it was a little bit loose, I could add a little bit of glue to this, but it fit pretty tight. Now with all the major repairs done and the paint applied, I think it's time for some brand new hardware. And I don't know if you noticed this, but at the beginning of the video, we were missing a ton of the knobs that were on this dresser to begin with. And the ones that remained, they were pretty ugly. So I'm very glad that a lot of them were missing. It made the decision to go to new hardware super easy. But these knobs on Amazon were perfect. They're just cheap brass knobs, but I can't think of a better combo than black and brass. Let me know what you think. This dresser is pretty much done. Now tell me what you think. Is this better than the piece of junk I picked up on the side of the road for free? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know if you do anything differently, or if you have any tips or tricks to share with me. I'd love to hear from you. Till next time.